Hello everyone and welcome in today's session, Integrating ISO 27001, ISO 20000 and Project Management from Theory to Practical. I would like to thank you all for signing up for this webinar. As always, I'm delighted to have you here with us. My name is Erita, the Portfolio Marketing Manager for Continuity, Resilience and Service Management and the PECB organizer of this webinar. This very interesting topic will be presented by Mr. Sheikh Adnan Hafiz. He is an IT GRC security consultant and lead auditor and a PECB Certified Trainer with over 10 years of significant progressive experience in information technology field, focusing on information security, IT governance, ISO standards implementation and compliance, IT service management, risk management, software project management, and process improvement. At the end, please feel free to submit any question or comments you may have during this webinar in the chat box of your control panel. Mr. Ahmed will answer to all your questions accordingly at the end of the presentation. Thank you for your attention and enjoy this webinar. Please, Mr. Ahmed, you may start the presentation.
Thank you, Erita. Good day, everyone. My name is Hafiz Sheikh Adnan Ahmed, and I welcome you all from the beautiful city of Dubai for this webinar. The topic I have chosen today is how we can integrate ISO 27001, ISO 20000, and project management. The basic reason for selecting this topic is based on my experience working with different companies and in different industries. I have noticed that when any organization forces multiple standards, frameworks, and guidelines, they may end up creating separate controls recommended by each of the standards. So at the end, it not only creates duplicate work for the companies, but it also becomes very challenging for executives to get a comprehensive understanding of the organization's IT risk exposure and governance processes. That is why I chose this topic to see how we can integrate ISO standards, specifically ISO 27001 and ISO 20000, along with the project management. This is a brief about me, although Eritex already explained to you. But for further information, if you want to connect me anytime later on, you can contact me through my email, which is and through LinkedIn, as well as you can always tweet me, and I'll be more than happy to speak to any of you, and it would be a pleasure speaking to you later on. The agenda for today's webinar, primarily it's about how we can integrate ISO 27001, 20000, and project management. But first I will start with the CIA, which is the core of information security, and then we'll see the new ISO management information system requirement structure, which was introduced by ISO in April 2012. There were some changes which were introduced by ISO, and the overall goal for the new structure was to create an integrated management system and to adapt management system standards to the nature and culture of the organizations. Then we'll see anything about COBIT 5. I will try to explain how we can map the COBIT 5 to the new management system requirements. We'll see how we can map the PMI phases with COBIT 5 and how we can map ISO 27001 with ISO 20000. And in last, we'll try to see how we can define the scope for ITIL, ISO 20000, and project management. The prerequisites for this webinar, I'm sure all of you who are listening to me today, they have a very good understanding and exposure to information security and ISO frameworks, along with IT service management. They should have some basic understanding of the project management and the knowledge of COBIT 5. Before I proceed further, I would like to explain you here that I'm not going to discuss in details about ISO 27001 or ISO 20000 because this is not the scope of the current presentation. Yes, implementation, when it comes to the implementation phase, it is very necessary how you can implement ISO 27001 or ISO 20000 or any other ISO standard. But because today, because of the time constraints and other limitations, I'll be focusing more on the mapping of these two standards along with the project management. And when I will talk about project management, I'll be talking more about from the PMBOK framework, which is given by the Project Management Institute of USA. So let's take a couple of scenarios. That let's assume you are a project manager and you get on a Monday morning and some things come to you like this, that you open your email and see that one of your team member has inadvertently forwarded a project business case to a competitor of your client. It's a huge security breach. You are planning for soft launch of a new system before going live next week, but then you realize your inventory spreadsheet is corrupted. What would be your reaction as a project manager? You're about to walk into a meeting with your project sponsor and discover that the laptop you have stored the presentation has blue screen or it has just crashed. So what would be your backup plan? Korea has misplaced some confidential documents sent by the vendor which may jeopardize the whole project schedule, and current insurance policy doesn't cover such loss. So what would be your reaction as a project manager? The idea behind introducing or discussing this scenario is that we try to see that if you are a project manager, is it your responsibility as a project manager to introduce information security, or you have to work with the information security team to understand and to minimize the risks which are created due to information security breaches. So that is why we will see how we can map between the project management and information security. CIA, which is the core of information security, I'm sure everybody who is listening to me today, they must be very familiar with this term, which stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability. The job of information security is primarily to ensure CIA is in place, but there's a common misconception that only IT is responsible for it. This is a very common misunderstanding which is normally found in all the organizations, or at least in most of the organizations, that IT is only responsible to handle the information security of the organization. But in actual they are not. Yes, IT is responsible to some extent, but at the end of the day, it's a team effort who is responsible to carry forward the information security. Then who is responsible for information security in your organization, or say for the project you are managing, particularly for the project related to IT services being provided to the end user. Now, you are a project manager, you are not handling the information security, you are providing the IT services. Then who is responsible to handle the information security part? You will open the information security to some other person, or you will shift the responsibilities to the information security team. What will be your role as a project manager to consider information security in your applications? We can say it's all about the protection of information and its critical elements, like as I said, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, including the systems and processes that are used, store, and transmit the information. Security definitely is a paramount concern for project managers. Let's say, but the most important part is that in today's frameworks that we have for project management, let's say for PMBOK, there is no certain standard guideline or methodology that deals with the security of the projects. Even if you see in the PMBOK, which is introduced by PMI, I believe we are in the 5th or 6th edition of PMBOK now, but still it doesn't talk much about the security of the project. It is left to the project manager to define the security requirements for how the project team communicates, separate the duties, handle the information, respond to security incidents, and stay current with the regulations affecting the project. So at the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the project manager to see how he or she can handle the information security within his or her project, because the project you are handling is basically delivering the IT services which are provided to the end user. So now you are a project manager, you have to handle your project management assignments or activities. You have to cover your information security within your project for the IT services which you are providing. This is what we are going to see how we can map in the next few slides. This is a common pyramid which covers the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. I'm sure everybody can understand the importance of these three terms, because confidentiality speaks normally about the information kept private and secure. Integrity says your data should not be modified, they need to be added. Availability says your system should be available when they are required by the business users. Accountability says assurance by recording the identities and activities, and authenticity is providing the verification of the identities. So this is the pyramid on which basically your information security is based on. And remember one thing, information security does not work in isolation. Information security is provided against the IT services or the services you are providing to the business user, or the services which are provided by the service provider to you as a client. So information security is not working in isolation. It is being provided against the IT services, the IT infrastructure you have, whether it is network, the applications, the infrastructure, the support services. The information security is moving around the IT services. This is one of the major misconceptions that we have in the industry, which should be addressed. This as I explained earlier, confidentiality means only authorized persons are able to see actual information and protect actual information from being visible to all others. Integrity focuses to keep information intact as intended and not altered, and must not be allowed unauthorized modification. Availability is to ensure all authorized persons are able to access information when it is required. So next, think of this, next try to answer a couple of questions here. Who is the information owner in the organization for a project? Next, think of this way. Who is to understand and conduct the impact assessment? Is it the project manager? Is it the responsibility of a third-party consultant? Or is it the responsibility of your CISO or any other information security guy? How to secure information flow or process in your project? Who is responsible for that? Try to map with your organization, with the scenario if you are facing, and try to answer this. It's the senior management, for sure, or business heads who are responsible to own the information. IT is the custodian of the information, but they are not primarily responsible to handle the information, because the information they are handling in their databases or in their servers is ultimately the data of the organization or the business users. Who is to understand and conduct the impact assessment? The owner should be the one who is going to tell us the importance of the information and is assess what will happen if we fail to protect. So normally impact assessment, risk assessments is done by the subject matter experts, or normally it is conducted by the third-party consultants if you don't have subject matter experts in your organization. How to secure information process in your project? It is the responsibility of the project manager to understand the process, and he or she is responsible to ensure that the information process workflow should work in a smooth way. However, they are not the security experts. Sometimes it is not necessary that your project managers are also security experts, but they should be fully aware of the process, how the information is created, what is the flow of the information, how is it going to give the input to the business users at the end of the day, and how is it going to create value for your organization. So yes, in this case, project managers would be responsible, but it is not mandatory that they should have the, they should be security experts as well. So who is the project manager? He should have understand what are information risks concerning his project, interpret impact to senior management and customer for security issues, need to able to decide on appropriate mitigating actions, minimize the risk associated with information security breaches, include security considerations is integrated in every phase and process of a project. Ensure adherence to policy and standards compliance. So need to include information security within the project process right from the initiation. So you can see the project manager may not be the full have this security domain as an expert, but he should have the understanding what could be the risks involved in my project, what could be the impact if something goes wrong during the life cycle of my project, what would be my backup plan, what could be the impact on the business of my organization. He should have the backup plans to mitigate those risks. He should understand the current policies, processes, procedures which are available or which are implemented or which are followed in the organization. So he should ensure the adherence to current policies and processes. Okay, so excuse me. Now we see the understanding of the new structure which was introduced by ISO management system requirements back in 2012. And as I explained earlier, the overall goal was to make it easier to create integrated management systems and to adapt management system standards to the nature and culture of the organizations. The best thing which ISO did was they defined the basic requirements for on the ISO standards, and now the new transitions which are happening specifically for ISO 27001, or even if you see ISO 20000, ISO 31000, they all have the same basic requirements. Start from the scope, then you move to the terms and definitions. You define the context of the organization, what is the internal context, external context, what are your interested parties, who are the stakeholders of your company or the organization, determine the scope of whatever information ISO standard you are going to implement, who are the stakeholders who are involved from the beginning, what is the leadership and commitment from the leadership side, the organization roles and responsibilities which you have defined, who will be performing what activities. You have to define the plan, you have to conduct risk assessment. Previously, in the previous, if you see back before 2012, there was no integration between different ISO standards. For example, ISO 27001 had ISO 27005 for the risk assessment specifically. Now what ISO did, they introduced ISO 31000 for risk management, which cover all the possible aspects of your organization, whether you are working in a healthcare industry or in a financial industry or in a real estate industry. You can go to complying with the ISO 31000, which is the risk management. Then section 7 is all about the support, the resources you need, the competency level, the awareness, how you will be communicating with your resources, with your stakeholders, with the business users, what kind of documentation is required, then how you will be performing the evaluation, the monitoring of your processes or procedures which you are going to implement, and last but not the least, the non-conformities and corrective action. So this is the new structure of ISO management system requirements, which was introduced in ISO in April 2012, and we'll see how this fit, or how ISO 27001 and ISO 20000 fit together to map with the new structure of the ISO. Before that, we have COBIT 5. I'm sure all the people are very much aware about COBIT 5, developed by ISACA. It's the comprehensive IT governance and management framework accepted globally that deals with every aspect of IT, and is the only framework that addresses the complete life cycle of IT investment. So it starts from your governance. You have your governance domains, and then it comes to the planning phase, or you can say the align, plan, and organize phase, in which you define your IT strategy, the portfolio, the service level management, and different processes. Then it comes to moving to the operation side, where you have your application development, system development, how you have to gather the business requirements, how you have to manage your changes, how you have to do the release and deployment, and then it comes to services and support, where you have incident and service requests, and last but not the least, the monitoring and assurance of the processes. So it covers the full life cycle of the IT investment. It is often viewed as the umbrella framework, as it integrates all of the main global IT standards, enabling companies to improve IT governance and management by ensuring that appropriate processes, governance and management enablers are used to build IT capabilities to achieve stakeholder goals. It provides end-to-end business view that integrates other standards, frameworks, and guidelines such as ITIL, ISO 27001, ISO 20000, ISO 31000, and project management into an overall enterprise governance and management framework. So basically, COBIT 5, as we'll see in the next slides, it's a comprehensive framework which not only covers the management part, which not only covers your monitoring phase, which not only covers your application part, not only covers your infrastructure part, but it gives you a full picture, it gives you a full umbrella from governance up to the monitoring and assurance of the processes. COBIT 5 does not replace the other sources of reference. This is very important to understand, because since COBIT 5 is introduced, it is another misconception in the market that if we have COBIT 5 in place, it means we have covered all the ISO standards or we have implemented the maximum controls. This is not the way. COBIT 5 is a framework. It gives you the guidelines. It covers maximum frameworks, as we'll see in the next picture. This is provided by ISACA itself in the COBIT 5 framework book. So you can see it gives you the guidelines. It is covering as an umbrella for all the possible frameworks. But if you want to have ISO 20000, 7001 in place, you have to go for the compliance and standard auditing procedures which are followed by the industry. Again, that is not the scope of this presentation to discuss how we can implement any of these particular standards. But the idea is COBIT 5 gives you the guidelines. And second important thing is you cannot go for the certification of COBIT 5. There is no COBIT 5 certification available for no organization. It is the best practice. It is a guidelines provided by ISACA which cover your maximum standards which are available. But at the end of the day, if you want to comply specifically for any of the standard, you have to follow that specific standard for the compliance and auditing accreditation purposes. So in this picture, if you see, it starts from evaluate, direct, and monitor, which is the EDM phase, which normally talks about the governance processes you have, starting from the resource optimization, stakeholders transparency, how you have to define the risk management in your organization. Then it comes to the APO phase, which is align, plan, and organize. Now here, if you see, there is a mapping between ISO 31000, which normally talks about the risk management, and ISO 27001, which is on the right side of the picture. So ISO 27001, and we'll see in the next slides, the controls which ISO 27001 talks about is more or less some of the controls are overlapping with ISO 31000, which is the risk management. Then when we move to the build, acquire, and implement phase, which is more about the project management, TOGAF, CMMI, ISO 20000, ITIL, they are all overlapping. But in this presentation, since we'll be talking more about ISO 27001 mapping and ISO 20000 mapping along with the project management, we'll see how they are overlapped together and what activities do we need to perform in order to ensure that some of the duplicate work, which maybe in most of the organizations today we are performing, we can minimize that duplicate work. Okay, so as we see in the last two slides, one was the management system requirements, which was introduced by ISO in April 2012, and the new COBIT 5 guidance, which is provided by ISACA. So if you see now clause by clause, the first clause, which is the context of the organization, in which you have to identify the internal and external context. You have to identify the interested parties. You have to identify the stakeholders. You have to identify the scope of the information security and service management system. The same points are more or less covered in your COBIT 5 guidance as pain points, trigger events, stakeholder drivers, enterprise goals, IT-related goals, and information on the related guidance. Pain points, when you go to identify the pain points or the triggering events in your department or in your organization, you will start from stakeholders. You will be meeting with different stakeholders, you will speak to them, you will identify what could be the pain points in my organization, what are the enterprise goals, how the IT goals are mapped with the enterprise goals, and how your team goals are mapped with the IT related goals. So this is all part of COBIT 5 guidance, which basically gives you the expectation of the interested parties, what is the context of the organization, what would be the scope and everything. Then if you move to clause number 5, which is leadership, in which you have to define the policy, organizational roles and responsibilities. If you see on the right side in a COBIT 5, in every process of COBIT 5, starting from EDM 01 to MEA 03, these are the 37 processes that we have in COBIT 5. I'm sure a lot of people must know about these 37 processes. In every process, you have to define the roles, responsibilities, and authorities, starting from your external stakeholders up to the executive level, and the roles and responsibilities of each and every team member. So the best part is you can define it as in the form of RASI chart from APO 06, APO 09, APO 10, 12, 13. These are all the processes which talks about how you have to define the roles, responsibilities, and authorities, and the policy statements in your organization. Then when you move to the planning phase, where you have to define the objectives for ISO 27001 and ISO 20000, here it comes more about the management practices starting from APO 06, APO 08, 9, 10, 12. Then you move towards the build, acquire, implementation phase. You have manage changes, manage release and deployment. You have services and support processes. So the ISO 27001 process, and the next slide we'll see what are the ISO 27001 processes or the controls specifically which are mapped with ISO 20000 and with the COBIT 5 processes. Same is the case when you have clause number 7 for ISO standard, which talks about the support. In COBIT 5 we have an enabler which is called people, skills, and competencies. Same is the case with operations. Then you have performance evaluation and improvement. The idea behind all this mapping of COBIT 5 with the management system requirements is that if today you define or you have an overall framework, or if you're following any of the COBIT 5 processes, it is very easy for you. You can go with other management standards, compliance, and accreditation. This is another mapping of PMI phases with COBIT 5 and ISO processes. Now this will give a more clear picture starting from the initiation phase of PMI. And as I said, I'll be not talking more into the details how we can implement this, but I'll be giving you the mapping, and you can use later on in your organization to map different processes that you have from ISO 27001, ISO 20000, some processes from ISO 31000, and with your project management. So in the initiation phase where you are preparing a project, and as I said, for whenever you are working as a project manager, you have to introduce information security in your project. Why? Because information security is always against the IT services. The IT services you are providing to the end user, whether it is in the form of a project or whether you are doing some enhancements, whether you are doing some changes, you have to ensure that information security is part of your overall project management. So when you are in the initiation phase where you are preparing the project, you are doing the project preparation, you are doing business case study maybe or feasibility study, How it is mapped with the COBIT processes, we have a process called manage portfolio and ensure benefits delivery. What benefits you are going to get from this particular project? You can map it with the COBIT 5 process. In ISO, we have business relationship management, where basically you are meeting with the business stakeholders, you are getting the information requirements, you are getting the business requirements, you are defining your high-level requirements and high-level specification. Then you move to the planning phase, where you have the project planning. In COBIT 5, we have the processes called managed programs and projects and requirements definition. In ISO, we have service level management, in which you are defining, once you have the business requirements in place, you have finalized the requirements, you will start developing your service catalog, because the project or the functionality you're going to deliver to the business user is at the end of the day is a service. Then when you're in the execution phase, where you are doing the solution identification and build, final preparation, where you are going to have final release of the project into the production, and you are going to have the go live and stabilization. In COBIT 5, we have managed change acceptance and transition, which is basically your release and deployment processes as we name it in the ISO standards. Then we have PMI, we have monitoring and control, where you have risk management, issue management, change, reporting, vendor management, and resource management. These are the normal stages in project management. With COBIT 5, we have managed changes. We have MEA01, which is about the monitoring of the performance. You have managed suppliers, manage operations, manage human resources, the budgeting and costing. Now you can map the same COBIT 5 with your ISO processes, which is your change management, service reporting, supplier management, capacity management, configuration management, resource management, budgeting and accounting. Now if you see at the very last column, which is ISO process, some of the processes are the same we have in ISO 27001 as we have in ISO 20000. So let's assume today your company is ISO 27001 certified, and if you want to go for ISO 20000, you don't have to work from scratch. Your basics are available, most of the processes are available, map them, try to cover the maximum, the processes which are not implemented from IT service management point of view, fine-tune your processes, fine-tune your documentation, and you can easily go for ISO 20000 compliance and certification. This is another mapping chart of ISO 27001 and ISO 20000. In ISO 27001, the new version, which is 2013, you have a control called change management. In ISO 20000, we have a complete process for change management. In ISO 27001, for example, you have capacity management. So the same we have in ISO 20000, which is the capacity management. Information secure backup, which is part of in ISO 27001. In ISO 20000, it is covered under your service continuity and availability. Same is the case with relationships. Same is the case with information security, incident management. In ISO 20000, we have incident service request management. So the idea is, because it is a common misconception that people think that if we have to go for one certification, now we have to align with another, or we have to comply with another ISO standard, we have to start from the scratch, or maybe it would be a duplicate of work. There is no such thing. If you want to go for ISO 27001 or ISO 20000, as I said, just fine-tune your processes, make sure you have covered maximum clauses, and to ensure you have covered maximum clauses, you can use COBIT 5 framework because it covers maximum guidelines and activities. So once you have COBIT 5 or an overall framework in place, you can easily fine-tune these processes and you can go for the certification. This is another slide where you have unified documentation. As I said, if you can see on the right side, 4.1 is about the understanding of the organization in its context, ISMS requirements, leadership commitment. These are coming from the management system requirements. More or less you have the same in ISO 20000. You don't have to create something extraordinary to map these two standards. This is the last slide in scope of ITIL, ISO 20000 and project management. let me distinguish between the two categories, which is the implementation of new services or changes to existing services and how project management coordinates with them. New services definitely is easier to present. There's a business requirement and consequently the introduction of a new service. As you can see in the figure, as the new service progresses through the phases, more and more processes, functions, roles are getting involved. Starting from service strategy to service design to service transition, you can see a lot of new processes, a lot of new roles are involved. So if you were responsible for the IT service management, would you not like to have more overview and control? I'm sure you would. Introducing one new service can be complex, but project management can help you to keep the control, particularly if you have changing business requirements. For example, you are implementing a service and during implementation, your main competitor introduces the same service with additional functionality. What would be your reaction? You will finish the project? Of course not. So what you will do? To stay competitive, the least you can do is to implement the same functionality or even something better. But you will not start a new project. You will continue with the existing one, taking into account the changed business requirements so you can cater them later on in your project management and in your IT services. So this is the answer to the first 4 scenarios which we started, that if you are a project manager, you have a bad morning or a bad start of the week because your information security is somehow breached. So if you are a good manager, if you have covered the information security against your IT services, I'm sure you can cater a lot of, you can definitely cover a lot of things which will not breach your information security. So for example, you open your email and see that one of your technical resources that flagged an email containing document marked as confidential, preventing it from being forwarded to a competitor of your client. You're planning for soft launch, but then you realize your spreadsheet is corrupt. But for example, if you're taking the backup on time, you can easily restore. You're about to walk into a meeting with your project sponsor, and if you see your laptop is crashed, if you have shared the presentation with the authorized member of the operation staff, they can easily bring back the presentation for you from the storage backup. Thank you very much. I would like to end by saying that though every security program and project management is different, I believe that it is important to identify the collaborations between the two because it can enable your program to reduce risk quality and efficiently because again it's all about the services you're providing to the end user as per the IT service management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for this informative webinar. I would like to ask the audience to write your question now while I start reading the first question. Should it be the project management in information security or information security in the project management? Is one question that one attendee wrote.
I believe information security in the project management, because if we will take information security as a project, yes, it could be a 4 months to 6 months of activity when you are going to comply with any of the information security framework, like say ISO 27001. But what would happen if you have implemented and if you have complied with information security? Are you going to finish information security once you get the certification? Of course not. You have to introduce information security in your projects, in your daily routine, in your operational activities. So I would say introduce information security in your projects. So information security should be part of the overall project management activities.
Thank you for this answer. We will go with the next one. Out point of advertising marketing, it's recommended to combine this with 21,500 project management.
Sorry, can you repeat?
Yes. One attendee wrote, out of the points of advertising, it is recommended to combine this with 21,500.
ISO 21500 is about project management. Yes, from the advertising and from marketing point of view, you can go to complying with ISO 21500, which is the project management certification. But as per my understanding, again, that to implement ISO 21500, you have to follow any methodology. So you can use maybe Prince2 or PM board, but definitely you can align your project management standard with these standards, because at the end of the day, as I said, ISO has integrated the basics of the information management system requirements, which we just saw in the presentation slides. So whether you are going to have ISO 21500 or you are going to have any other standard, your basics would remain the same, starting from context of the organization, what would be your internal context, external context, what would be your leadership, who is going to play what activity in your in that particular standard. So your basics would be the same, and yes, definitely you can go for ISO 21500 along with these two standards.
Thank you for this interesting answer. Because of the time limitation, Mr. Ahmed will answer to all the remaining questions through email. We will go with the last question. Is it recommended to integrate project management and ISO 31000 in ISO 27001?
See, it is not recommended, or it is not a hard and fast guide. It's something not hard and fast. It is based on what your organization is looking for. Yes, if your organization is very much prone to risk management, definitely you should go for ISO 31000. You can comply with ISO 31000, which is the risk management. Project management, in any organization, whenever we are going to have, we are doing any projects, we are following any kind of project management methodology, whether you are using PMI, whether you are using Prince2, whether you are using Agile methodology, Scrum methodology, whatever methodology you are using, you have to introduce risk management in your projects. For example, if you are in the planning phase, you have to do the risk assessment, let's say, during the execution phase of your projects. If one of your key resource resigns or he leaves the organization, what would be your backup plan? So you have to develop this understanding, and you have to develop the culture of introducing risk management in project management. Whatever the methodology you are using, that is up to you and your organization. But the best is, yes, you must introduce risk management in your project management. But at the end of the day, it is your choice.
Mr. Ahmed, thank you for this excellent presentation, and I want to thank all the attendees as well who have joined us today. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. Please be informed that this webinar is recorded and we will upload in our official YouTube channel and in our website PECB.com. Also, we will upload the slides in our SlideShare account, in where you can view the slides as well. Once again, thank you and enjoy your day.
Thank you very much.